All right. In a league that's topsy-turvy and oh so unpredictable, we get the last place team that was predicted by the Big 12 media winning the championship in year number one. What a crazy year in the Big 12, and it's not over. Don't count out Arizona State. We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. This is our Big 12 live show that we present to you each and every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks to this guy, Nathan Brown. Big 12 Mafia. Nathan, what's going on?
Not much. I got a little rest over the weekend, so I've got some energy going into our show today. I think it was an upside down week for the Big 12. They hope to get two teams in. You only get one, but the one they get in gets a bye. So I think you can make an argument they made out better than the ACC. So a lot of gnashing of teeth and yelling and wailing and at Alabama and some other things. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a fun 12-team playoff, and we'll just have to see how this first season goes. At the end of the year, next year, I wonder if Big 12 fans, depending on what Arizona State does, if they would have preferred to have two teams in, but neither one of them, both of them are on the road. Playing against much bigger opponents. So I think it'll all work out in the end, I imagine.
These are not necessarily the 12 best teams in the country, but I personally am okay with that because I think that the committee made the moves that were justified. They were the right moves. They were the right decisions to make. I believe that these 12 teams earned it. And I think that's what it's all about on the field, earning the right to play there. SMU made it all the way down to the wire, needed a 56-yard field goal to beat them in the ACC championship game. In so many respects, have a better resume than Alabama, although I would fight the other side as well. I just think it's so close that you have to reward the team that went to their conference championship game and only lost on a last-second play.
I think that's fair. I mean, it also shows that everything equals out because they don't get that bye. If we look at that, I'm looking at the ladder right now. You're a SMU that has to beat a Penn State on the road. You're a Clemson that has to beat a Texas on the road. So while they got the extra position into the playoff, I'm not sure they made out better. So we'll find out. If Arizona State wins a game, depending on who comes out of that Clemson-Texas matchup, then you could say, yeah, that having that bye made a huge difference. So we'll have to see. I'm really excited about it, though. I mean, this first year, I'm disappointed about a few things. BYU had a chance and then went out and lost. So they did that to themselves. You got to be able to earn your way in, and that's where we're at.
As for the Boise State-Arizona State comparison, I can argue that one either way as well. I understand the lean toward Boise State for having higher end loss, of course. It's
Right.
arguably the best loss, if there is such a thing, best loss in the country. And then the two UNLV wins. But Arizona State, no question, plays a tougher schedule top to bottom. And that was not necessarily honored there. But the committee set itself up because if you've got the number 10 team in the country and you got the number 15 team in the country, and they similarly win games, and one over number 20 and one over number 16, that certainly doesn't justify lifting 15 all the way up 6 spots to surpass number 10. So based on the way the committee set it up before last weekend, I agree with their decision, although I could certainly make the argument for Arizona State over the course of the entire year.
Yeah, the whole hemming themselves in with arbitrary rules, I think, was stupid. I don't know why what Ward Manuel went out and said that about you're not going to bump somebody because of what happens in a championship game, and you can't move up. You're not going to lose a position just when you win your games. At the end of the day, it's hard for anybody that I'm around to justify how Boise State's ahead of Arizona State. I still don't agree with that at all. Yeah, they won all their games, but they played in a conference that's much worse than any of the other power conferences are. So winning one extra game in a conference that isn't that difficult or on a schedule not that difficult, I definitely still don't agree with that. But they got their bye, and at the end of the day, their bye, they get to play the winner of Penn State SMU. And Arizona has to play Clemson, Texas. So they definitely got the easier draw. And we'll have to look back in history and find out why once the season's over and the playoffs done, why Boise State got the deference they did all season long. Somebody needs to do a study on that, because it certainly wasn't because they were beating better competition.
I think the study goes back to the second week of the season in September. Little did we know that Boise State wrapped up their bye right then when they lost in
Right.
the last play of the game to Oregon.
Yeah, look, in this season, there's not any team that's that can go undefeated without any concern about that. I think Oregon, that they have to play the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. That's no throw-in game. So at the end of the day, Boise State losing by a field goal. Look, Oregon barely beat Idaho in the first week of the season. So they're just getting started for the season, for the week 1, week 2, week 3 games. I find it hard to believe that that means that they should be promoted above some of these other schools.
So, Nathan, it's funny that the narrative around this league is how unpredictable it is and how close these teams are. And then you can take that this is a stretch to say any team in the league that's going to beat any other team. But generally, once you get past maybe the bottom 3 or 4, who knows who's going to win games between these teams. There are certainly better teams than other teams, but it would not shock anyone if, well, Texas Tech beats Arizona State because they did it, so forth and so on. But then we get to a championship game, and in the conference that is the most likely to have a close game because of the close proximity of all the quality of the teams, we get to a conference championship game, and Arizona State just blows it out in the second half, early in the second half, with 3 consecutive turnovers against Iowa State's offense, and it was a runaway.
Yeah, I was really disappointed with that game. Look, at the end of the day, Iowa State won their 10th game. That was their Super Bowl the week before. They beat a tough Kansas State team, went down to the wire, and I think they spent all their energy, similar like BYU spent all their energy against Utah and never looked the same after that game on November 9th. I think these rivalry games are they take way more out of these teams than we want to admit. And Arizona State really didn't have that battle. Once they beat BYU, they had a week off essentially to go and prepare for this playoff game. And dang if they didn't put the wood to Iowa State. I was disappointed. I thought Iowa State would show out a little bit more. And I'm not the only one, by the way. A lot of Big 12 experts came out and said Iowa State is going to be a much closer game, if not a win for Iowa State outright. And Arizona State put the wood to them. So I tip my hat to Arizona State coming out at the end of the season. They won the games they had to win. And look, now they're in the playoff, and who knows? All bets are off once you get to a playoff format.
We've got Clint and Wet Blanket and Jackson showing up. Wet Blanket says here, Mark expected that the conference with the 3-loss champ would have been the Big 12, but wrong. It was the ACC. I don't really understand that statement there, but my preseason prediction was I picked Iowa State to win the Big 12 at 11-2. That was my preseason prediction.
Okay.
So I was off by 1 game. They didn't quite get it done on the final game, but I picked Iowa State and Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game and the Cyclones to win at 11-2. So don't really know what Wet Blanket's talking about there. I set up scenarios to say the worst case scenario for the Big 12 would be having a 3-loss team win the championship,
Yes.
meaning if Colorado would have gotten in and then won the championship. That's what I meant by that. That was not my prediction.
Yeah, and I would have thought that we would have had the same situation in the ACC. It's sort of a fluke that Miami, who only had 2 losses, didn't make it to the championship game. Really, there should have been 2. What is that? An 11-1 and a 10-2 team in that game. Instead, Clemson gets in on a tiebreaker and then goes out and beats SMU. Really, it was a really good game. But I mean, they won that game, and it made them look like, well, wait a second, maybe this conference isn't as topsy-turvy as we thought. Maybe it really was flat. It was a 3-team league, and everybody else really wasn't competitive. I mean, it was a disappointment in the ACC, I think. Florida State obviously was a disappointment. Maybe a Virginia Tech didn't play where everybody expected them to be. So at the end of the day, the ACC is the one that has the tougher game, and I think they have two good teams that are in the playoff game now, but the Big 12 gets that bye. And in my opinion, if I was to trade those two things for the conference, I would take the bye and then have that better opportunity to make it to the third round of the playoff.
Got Nathan Brown here from, of course, the Big 12 Mafia, and please join Nathan there throughout the week and the rest of the crew. When are you guys going live next time?
We'll be live tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Just look up Big 12 Mafia or College Football Mafia on YouTube, and you'll find us.
As we bring in Michelle Gardner from Arizona Republic, I'll just bring this one up. This is almost a condensed version of the NCAA basketball tournament, in a sense where, okay, Big 12 is unfortunately a one-bid league. The SEC has 3, the Big 10 has 4, and it's almost like I liken it again to March Madness, because some of those leagues that'll get 6, 7 bids,
right?
A few of those teams can completely be busts and crap out first round, bad losses, upset losses. But as long as somebody carries the torch, the overall look of the league is pretty good if you've got 1 or 2 that make it through.
Right.
The Big 10 and the SEC have those opportunities. Of course, everything is riding on Arizona State in terms of perception of the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, it's better to have 2 than 1. That's true. It gives you more bites at the apple. At the end of the day, all the Big 12 can do is show up and then hopefully show out. Look, let's assume Texas did not look good yesterday or Saturday night. Texas did not look good. Clemson looks like world beaters. So coming out of that game, I would say Arizona State has every opportunity to beat either of those teams, especially the Arizona State team we saw Saturday afternoon. If that team shows up, then either one of these other schools is going to have their hands full. So let's assume that a miracle happens. We're not going to call it a miracle, but the unexpected happens and Arizona State actually wins that round game. Now you're looking at the winner of Ohio State, Oregon, or Tennessee. So you're not, there's no freebies in this thing. Just to get in is an achievement, but you have to go out and actually win games. Bob Thompson told me that for a conference to really change a paradigm, you have to win games in the playoff. That's the easiest way to change a narrative for your league. And if Arizona State goes out and wins a game, maybe wins 2 games, if there's a miracle, right? Win 2 games. Now all of a sudden, everybody's going to look at the Big 12 conference different as we move forward in this new era of college football playoff.
All right, we got Michelle Gardner checking in from Arizona Republic. Michelle, how you doing?
Wow, this has been an unbelievable ride. Unbelievable.
You're our go-to person with Arizona State, just lighting it up every week.
That was impressive. I mean, I don't think anybody expected that sort of beatdown. They sent a message. They're a scary team to play right now.
Can you explain what happened? The Iowa State that we saw play against Kansas State the week before was pretty good. They looked good. So what did Arizona State do differently to sort of put them on their back heels outside of just turn the ball over and over again?
Well, when you got Cam Scadaboo, that's a start. And everybody knew that Iowa State's Achilles heel was stopping the run. Just give it to Cam Scadaboo. And I thought they had a great game plan. I thought the call on 4th and 1 was a gutsy call, a great call. And I think you're looking at a team that's just getting better every game too. So, and they're confident. So I just think it's just a matter of like literally everything. The chips are falling in the right direction. They're playing really well. They're really confident. And I think that the ability to run the ball opened it up for some passing, some timely passing, and Levitt hit when he needed to hit. So I just think Iowa State ran into a buzzsaw and a team that's going full throttle and just playing great right now.
Yeah, so that was kind of my biggest takeaway, in that Scadaboo was the poster child for this, but it wasn't just his position that was dominant physically. That Arizona State was just a more dominant, physically imposing football team. They won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They made life hell on Rocco Becht. He had no time to throw. He got slammed to the turf a number of times. People became very familiar with a number of names, Shamari Simmons in particular, on the Arizona State defense, guys that got to play and show themselves out for a national audience, kind of for a first time.
Right. And let's not forget, they had other wide receivers step up. So everybody was worried, what are they going to do without Jordan Tyson? And Xavier Guillory goes out there, catches 2 touchdown passes, and one of them was a phenomenal catch.
Yeah.
And then you have Malik McClade. Really? Like he hadn't played all season. They were going to redshirt him. He looked really good in fall camp, but he came in late and was kind of having trouble picking up the playbook. And ASU is thinking, we're pretty loaded at wide receiver. We'll redshirt Malik McClain. So he was not even in the game plan until Tyson got hurt. And lo and behold, he made a fantastic catch. I think it was 42 yards or whatever. So they just had other guys step up. And especially when everybody thought with Jordan Tyson out, and I did too, that was a huge loss. Again, when you've got a good team, chemistry, camaraderie, confidence, other guys are going to step up.
So tell us about this draw. You guys play the winner of Clemson, Texas. You saw both these teams play this last weekend. How do you match up against them, and what's the likelihood you guys can win that next game?
Well, I actually didn't see the Clemson game because I was literally writing and then en route to the airport and then on the plane. So like I actually didn't watch that game. Texas doesn't scare me. I'm sorry. They just don't scare me. I think it would be a better game for ASU if they're playing Texas. But Clemson is like kind of ASU. They're kind of hitting on all cylinders right now, and to win that game against SMU, and I don't want to say SMU's a fraud, but I kind of wasn't sold on them to begin with. I don't think they played a great schedule, so I wasn't sold on them to begin with. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a fantastic opportunity, like you previously alluded to, change the narrative about the Big 12. Yeah. Beat Clemson or beat the SEC team. So I would think every team in the Big 12 ought to be rooting for ASU. Maybe, and hopefully if they can at least win one of these games, we won't go through what we went through this year, where by one sheer fluke of one turn of one game, ASU ends up from a first round game into a bye.
Right.
So I would think that the entire Big 12 should be rooting for ASU.
Well, that's going to be our marching orders, right? I'm going to turn around and do that on my channels and shows to show out and get everybody to be the boosters for ASU.
Well, don't you think that that's the absolute best scenario for this conference?
Yes, it is. Of course, you guys winning games. That's how we're going to change the profile of the Big 12. Anything we can do to turn the tables on the CFP committee, the better, in my opinion.
Well, I'm just glad it all worked out. When I looked at the draw, I think they got it right. That's my take. And it was funny because, like I said, you want to hear a funny story. This is actually a great story. So as I'm going to the airport, my flight was at 10 o'clock out of Dallas, and I was with a bunch of other media people. And so our gate is A9, and we're working our way to the gate. And lo and behold, would you not know that gate A8 was the flight to Des Moines? So there's like 400 people at one gate, A8, and then the ASU flight was right next door. So I found that really amusing. So it was pretty funny. But literally, we were on the plane, and the ASU, my entire flight was ASU people. And literally everybody kind of had that game on their phone or whatever. And we're about ready to take off, and the game is tied, and it's like in the last minute. And they're like, turn off your phones. And everybody in the plane's like, no, we don't want to turn off our phones. And literally as we were taking off, there was this huge like applause, because I guess that's when the field goal happened or whatever. So it was kind of a funny just last couple of hours.
Yeah. Interesting things happen both on and off the field during tournament time or playoff time or postseason time, and traveling and going to these games and interacting with fans. It's always fun. So I would say that a good outcome for the Big 12 is going to be either be competitive,
Right.
obviously winning the game against Texas, or if Clemson beats Texas, not a whole lot of people are sold on Clemson. And if there's a loss to Clemson, Clemson's then going to have to go on and prove something past that. So unfortunately, like I was saying to Nathan before we brought you on, Michelle, it's a one it's a one shot deal for the Big 12, and they've got nobody else to rely on, and it's like a one bid league from the NCAA basketball tournament instead of having 4 or 5 shots where a couple teams can crap out and be complete busts, but nobody's going to remember them if you've got 1 or 2 teams that move on and advance and look impressive.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put anything past this ASU team, honestly. Like, they literally think they're invincible right now, and they're a team that's playing with that kind of confidence. Also playing for house money. They weren't expected to be here. They've had this huge turnaround, so there's no pressure. There is no pressure whatsoever on ASU in this. All the pressure is going to be on Texas or Clemson, even though ASU is the higher seeded team. So I think that makes ASU a very dangerous opponent.
Where is that game at? Let's see. That quarterfinal game is being played where?
It would be at the higher seed.
It's at
and I think that's
Fiesta
Texas.
Bowl, right?
It's where?
No, the first round game, Clemson is at Texas.
I'm talking about the quarterfinals.
The Peach Bowl, right?
The Peach Bowl, yes.
Is it the Peach Bowl? Okay,
yes.
So that's in Georgia?
Yep, Atlanta.
Yeah, so Clemson, that's right in the heart of Clemson and certainly SEC territory. So that will be a road game essentially for Arizona State, regardless of the seeding, I think.
Yep, they're not fazed by that. They said they've gone into college atmospheres like in, when they went into Kansas State and Oklahoma State, and I mean they've played in that type of territory before. So I don't think that's going to faze them.
Okay.
What
was generally the crowd split at the Big 12 championship game?
It was actually pretty good. I would say they were on different sides. It was close. I would say maybe a little bit more for Iowa State, but I think I expected that. And just on a last minute, it was probably, 58 to 52, or, I would say it was close to 50-50, maybe a couple thousand more Iowa State, but it was close.
Okay, so let's talk about your team itself. You got a quarterback that's hot. You lost your number 1 receiver, but you've had other receivers step up. If you were to preview this for people who have never watched Arizona State play, what is the special sauce that makes this team work?
Kenny was actually asked that, and he just thinks that it is the team. The team dynamic is so good right now, and I hate that team chemistry, but that really is the case. And you've got a quarterback. I call him Sammy Swag because I just think he's got a swag about him. And you've got a running back that's got swag about him and confidence about him. And they just carry themselves with that kind of air and that kind of confidence that's really hard to find. And especially for a team that's relatively new, they've got a lot of new pieces this year. But I think it's a combination. They've had a balanced offense. They've used the running game when they needed the running game, but they've thrown when they needed to throw. The biggest linchpin in this whole thing is the kicking game, and they even made a field goal against Iowa State. I was stunned. I was stunned that on the first try down the field, they went for a field goal. And they did change their kicker, by the way. This was not the same kicker. So, when they made a field goal on the first try, I'm like, okay, maybe things are going right here. So the kicking game has always been the Achilles heel, and that didn't prove to be the case. And with the defense, sometimes it's a bend but don't break. And with the first 2 drives, the way Iowa State drove the field, the first couple of drives, I'm thinking, oh, great, this is going to be a really long day. And the final score of this game is going to be 54-48. But the defense made some adjustments. And then in the second half, they went for the jugular and got 3 straight turnovers that turned the game from a close game into a rout. Yeah. That was the defense.
Yeah, it sure was. There was only about halfway through the third quarter, and the game was pretty much decided on 2 excellent plays. So I kind of divide turnovers. I think some turnovers are a little bit of luck.
Right.
or a lot of luck, and then other turnovers aren't. They're athletic plays that are made by defenders breaking on the ball or
Right.
making a strip sack coming around the edge. Well, the 2 fumbles were definite plays by the Arizona State defense to intentionally knock the ball out.
Right.
The interception was
Right.
obviously
That was a
caught.
tip.
Well,
Right. That was off a helmet or off a
yeah,
lineman
that's
or
off the
whatever.
tackle's
And that was
helmet.
Johnny in the kid. That was Keith Abney right in the right place at the right time. So yes, I agree. But that's one thing that the defense was missing last year. So their turnover margin last year ranked 127th out of 130 teams. They only had 9 takeaways last year, and 4 of those came in the Washington game. So that was a place where they were sadly lacking last year, and that they've completely flipped the script on that. And I think they went into the game last week number 11 in takeaway ratio. So obviously they went up in that. But another thing about this team is when you look at Levitt, the guy's got 1 interception in the last 6 games.
Yeah, he's played really well.
I mean, nobody thought Sam Levitt would be this good this soon. So on the season, I think he's now up to 21 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. But I think it's only 1 interception like in the last 6 games, and he hasn't fumbled. So when you're getting that out of your quarterback, that's phenomenal. And he's a freshman.
Yeah, he's going to be good for you guys a long time as long as he stays healthy.
He stays healthy, and I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't know if you guys saw that his father kind of came out and said he's in it for the long haul. He wants to stay at ASU. He is donating his money from his own purchase merchandise or whatever, and he's putting that back into the Sun Angel Collective.
Right.
So I thought if a guy was thinking about leaving or even thinking about entertaining other offers, I don't think he'd be doing that. He's investing in his teammates. So I honestly don't think we're going to see a lot of movement as far as transfer portal guys from this team because the air right now and the dynamic is so good.
Yeah, I don't see. I mean, obviously the portal hit today. We've had people putting out notices left and right about I'm leaving this team and going into the portal. The teams that are currently playing in the CFP, I'd be shocked if a lot of those teams lost players. So
ASU was lost. ASU had 1 wide receiver go in the portal, but I don't even think he's caught a pass this year. I think he's really way down the pecking order.
Right.
And they've got a couple good recruits coming in. So they've had 1 guy, but it's not, again, I don't see anybody on the 2 deep. Now I could be wrong here, but and that's one good thing with Kenny does play a lot of guys, and especially on defense, he's got a pretty good rotation of guys. So I don't think there are a lot of big players that are going to just, I don't get enough playing time because he kind of does use a lot of players. So, and I think everybody loves playing for Kenny right now. So, there's always the grass is always greener. Well, right now it's pretty green in Tempe.
I thought it was pretty interesting that when Kenny Dillingham was meeting with the ESPN team after the announcement of the playoff, and he had to sit down with Reese Davis and the guys, that he talked about competitiveness. He said, this is the most competitive bunch we have, and that's how we recruit. Right. If you're not competitive and don't show that to us in the recruiting process, then you could be the best athlete in the world. We're not taking you. Like, we want you to be competitive at ping pong or tiddlywinks or whatever it is. And then he made some kind of comment. Then the follow-up question was, what's the secret sauce? How did you turn this culture around and make this culture? And he said, basically, I just answered that. I told you, I'm not doing anything here. We're finding the right people. And so they're bringing the culture with them.
Right. And he also said, too, and maybe he said it on the Zoom with us. We had a Zoom 3 seconds after that interview on ESPN finished. We were on Zoom with him. And he said it's amazing what winning does. The people that have reached out to him now,
Yeah.
And he said there are people where, you're just not the right fit. And he talked to me like, well, we talked this week. I did a Sam Levitt story last week, and he said that he and Sam go back and forth all the time. He said, I dish it out. I can take it. I can dish it out. So he and Sam were going back and forth last week about who was the better basketball player. They've got a basketball hoop in the locker room, and they go play basketball. And Sam wanted to say he was the best basketball player, and Kenny said, "No, you're not." And Sam said, "Well, yes, I am." And they literally went back and forth about who is the better basketball player, and I'll show you. So he's not just talking to talk. That literally is the way they are. And we've seen Sam give Kenny kind of crap on the football field, and Kenny gives it right back to him. But they kind of know the dynamic, and they each can take it. So it's actually pretty funny to watch.
We'll have to see next season. But now, first of all, is we know Levitt's a freshman, but is Scadaboo a junior? And
No,
is
he's
he
done.
playing?
No,
He's
he's going to
done.
be. He'll be gone. Yeah.
So the real, and this is going to be for every team in the Big 12. Turnover happens in every team, and anybody could win and drop from season to season. So next season, the ASU is going to have to replace Scadapoo with somebody that can help control the line of scrimmage, and then bring more tools to somebody like Levitt. So reloading is as much important as it is recruiting your own players to stick around, and that'll be the real test for ASU next year. Is if they can replace Scadaboo with somebody who's even half as good would be a helpful situation. And two,
Right.
this year they won the conference. Next year, you don't want to have a fallback.
No. Well, here's one little factoid that a lot of people don't know. Out of the 44 players on their two deep, 35 have eligibility left. That's unheard of. One of their best offensive linemen, kid named Ben Coleman, he's one of the guards. He's coming back, and it's going to be his 7th year. He's got like 3 college degrees, but he had like a redshirt year, and he was hurt a couple years, and there was the COVID year. Last year he was out. He had a leg injury that he suffered in February, I want to say. So he was out all of last year. He's already put out, and he did this like 3 weeks ago. He's coming back. And that's huge because outside of their center, Lee Fotanu, Ben Coleman's their best player on the line. So he's coming back. I think the guy to look for from a running back standpoint is a kid named Kyson Brown. He's a sophomore. He's been their kind of number 2 running back. But the other thing people don't remember is Raleek Brown is redshirting this year. And Raleek Brown was a 4-star prospect when he was recruited to USC. Raleek Brown's been out this year with a hamstring injury. He missed the first few games, tried to come back, wasn't quite right. So they're redshirting Raleek Brown. Raleek Brown is really good. He's not the same type of back that Scad is. He's more of a speed slasher back. But they're going to have him, and they never had him at all this year, basically. So between Raleek Brown and Kyson Brown, and then there's another Brown, Jason Brown, who's a freshman, and he redshirted. So we've got 3 Browns on the team, and they're all running backs. But I think they're going to have the weapons in the backfield to overcome the loss of Scadaboo.
Those guys named Brown, I don't know about them.
Well, no, seriously, it's Raleek Brown, Jason Brown, and Kyson Brown. So it's fortunately they haven't like all played in the same game. So when you write the story, you've got to like put a first name on every reference. But I think that ASU is going to be okay at running back. I think Kyson Brown will be very good. And again, Raleek, it's too bad we didn't get to see him because we heard so much about him. And with a hamstring, you just never know. And he was never right this year. So between those 2 guys, and then if they have everybody returning like they can have returning, and the other thing that Kenny said last week, he said they'll never exceed expectations like they exceeded them this year. Because now you go into next year and you're not the underdog. You're not the 16th pick in the conference. He said they'll never exceed expectations like they did this year because now they're not going to be a surprise.
Very true. Very true. And we know Arizona State's headed to Atlanta to the Peach Bowl, awaiting either Texas or Clemson. And I guess in the meantime, splitting their scouting, their film study, 50-50 between Clemson and Texas, or maybe it's more like 70-30 Texas. I don't know if they would admit to that, but we shall see.
Right. No, and this week, he's giving them this week off. Obviously, they don't play for a few weeks now. I think the first round bye was huge. And personally, I am so thankful for a first round bye because I needed a day to breathe. This has been like a month of really just nonsense, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong, but I was running on fumes, and I was not looking forward to possibly a trip to Columbus or a trip to Penn State if they had to play in a first round. I was not looking forward to that, but he's going to give them this week off, and then they'll ratchet back up next week and start getting ready.
Okay, Michelle, thanks so much for stopping by. We
Good to see
appreciate you
ya.
being here.
Anytime.
Everybody check out Michelle's work at Arizona Republic. Now's the time to do it with Arizona State red hot and headed toward a matchup against Clemson or Texas. All right, Michelle, we'll talk to you
you later.
Good luck.
Okay,
We'll see
bye-bye.
ya.
Okay.
All right, good stuff. Nathan, there would have been a time in years gone by when we would have been talking about bowl games.
Yeah.
And I don't know that many people, except for maybe their particular team, are talking about bowl games. But before we call it a day, I wanted to get your thoughts on just, again, from a game standpoint, it's difficult to predict or preview these games. You don't know who's going to show up, how motivated they're going to be. Some teams are going to run through a brick wall. Others are going to be checked out. You're going to have all sorts of factors. And, of course, the transfer portal and the NFL draft early entries. But I still love bowl season. I love it. And I know that, again, for us to try to scout these teams, it's going to be impossible. But just from the standpoint of your interest in these matchups, I'm just curious to get your thoughts as we run through the Big 12 games.
Sure.
You've got the Frisco Bowl, which is the first one for the Big 12, December 17th. That one played in Frisco, Texas against West Virginia, 6-6. Neil Brown, of course, fired, taking on a Memphis team that finished ranked at number 25.
Yeah, Memphis is motivated, right? They want to continue to build their brand. West Virginia is a down team. I think I will be surprised if a bunch of West Virginia people travel to this game in the middle of Texas. And I think Memphis has everything to play for.
Memphis knocked off Iowa State in a bowl game last year.
They
All
did.
right, our next game coming up here is the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. It's the Big 10 and the Big 12 with Kansas State taking on Rutgers. And right now, K-State's a full touchdown favorite in a game that's going to be played in Phoenix on December 27th.
Sorry, you just skipped it.
Where's
that?
Yeah,
that's right. There it is.
On me.
That's okay.
There we go.
K-State and Rutgers. I'm going to say K-State wins this, if for no other reason than proximity. Rutgers is a long way away.
Yeah, we've got Texas Tech, who may surprise some people that they finished at 8-4. They had a nice closing run to their season, taking on Arkansas. And these two teams used to, of course, knock heads in the Southwest Conference. December 27th, they get together at the Liberty Bowl.
Yeah, I think, boy, this is like a home game for Arkansas. So, but Texas is playing really well. I would not be shocked if Texas wins this by 10 points. Because of how well they're playing right now. So that should be a good game.
Then we got a group of 5 matchup here. TCU, they finished 8-4 as well this season, taking on Louisiana, one of the best of the group of 5. And this one, the New Mexico Bowl in Albuquerque.
Yeah, another team, I don't know what they're really playing for in TCU. But, bowl season, you have a few weeks off and you go out and you play the best you can. I would probably say TCU wins this, but I wouldn't be stunned if Louisiana came out. They have something to play for. Respect is not normally with them. So I think that should be a good game as well.
Nathan, if these two teams are motivated and they're playing real football, which, again, I don't know who's going to be showing up and who's going to be showing out for their workouts for the NFL draft, but Iowa State and Miami could be a heck of a game. You got 2 good football teams playing at the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Yeah, I think Iowa State has more to play for here than Miami. Miami is going to have a bunch of opt-outs. Obviously, their quarterback's not going to be playing. I would probably think Iowa State is they're favored by 1 point. They're going to have some opt-outs too, but Miami, I'll be stunned if they're not missing half of their starters on offense and defense or more.
And here we've got an interesting setup where we've got 2 teams from the same conference playing at the Alamo Bowl, mainly because it's a great draw. BYU is a great national draw. Colorado under Dion is a phenomenal draw, and they didn't play this year. So why not at the Alamo Bowl, which has proven to be a tremendous bowl game for about the past 25 years. You've got BYU, your beloved BYU team, taking on Colorado.
This might be one of the few games that isn't a playoff game that actually has the majority of the teams come back to play. Colorado, Deion's already come out and said, we're not opting out. Shadur's going to play. Travis is going to play. And Kalani's teams rarely have guys that don't want to play either. So this could be probably the best of all the non-playoff games. This could be the most entertaining. And it's going to get a crazy number. BYU will bring 25% of the fans, and the rest will be Colorado. But a lot of people are going to be watching this game, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I am too. Baylor, Dave Aranda with a bounce back here, saved his job, 8-4, taking on 8-4, Brian Kelly and LSU. That's at the Texas Bowl. That has been an SEC Big 12 affair for about the last 7 or 8 years, December 31st.
Yeah, this is another game that I think could be really good. Baylor absolutely finished phenomenal after a horrible start to their season. And LSU, I picked them to be in the playoff, and they fell off. So these are two teams that are kind of going in different directions. I think LSU has something to play for. They were embarrassed in the last 2 weeks of the season. So I think Baylor probably wins this game, but it's also going to be entertaining.
And there it is. LSU showed up against Kansas State after the COVID year in 2020. They were at the Texas Bowl, and Kansas State won that game against LSU. Nathan, appreciate you being here. Want to give you the opportunity to let everyone know what's going on at Big 12 Mafia.
You bet. So tomorrow night we'll be talking about it'll be like the Requiem for the Big 12, getting one team into the playoff. We'll talk about that tomorrow night, and then we'll look forward to these upcoming playoff games, which should be really exciting. I'm trying to drop my anxiety and drop all the disappointment and just go into this playoff and really be a cheerleader at the end of the day. We want to cheer and support the Big 12, and that's what we're doing. On Friday, we have a show that's our Friday picks, and we'll be picking those first, I guess, the play-in games. The first round of the playoffs, we'll be previewing those. So it should be a good show. So tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, just find us on YouTube.
And we've got bowl games starting already this Saturday, December 14th.
I can't believe how quickly that's coming. That's crazy.
Nathan, good to see you. Always appreciate you stopping by on Monday. So everyone make it on back next Monday for the Big 12 live show right here at the Voice of College Football, and subscribe to the channel and get on over to Big 12 Mafia. Nathan, we'll see you next week. Have a great week.
You too, Mark. We'll talk to you soon.